Good afternoon, students. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Chapter 2 and determination of tax. This is the basic formula for calculating income tax. Very important that you understand this formula. It's foundational. If you don't get the formula, then it's going to carry over into other parts of the course. So this is a great starting place for learning tax. This is your formula. You're going to start with total income. You're going to subtract any exclusions. And this equals gross income. And we'll be going over what exclusions are available. Once you have your gross income, then you can subtract your deductions for AGI. And this will equal your AGI, or adjusted gross income. These steps, taking total income, subtracting your exclusions, getting your gross income, and then subtracting your deductions for AGI, these are all done on the first page of the 1040, and I'll show you that in a moment. Once you have your AGI, you can start the second page of the 1040. From there, you're going to subtract your itemized deductions or your standard deduction, and you will choose whichever one is the highest. Next, you're going to subtract your personal exemptions. You get an exemption for yourself, for your spouse, and any dependents. And this is going to bring you now to taxable income. And then from there, you're going to calculate your tax liability per the tax table. Next, you will subtract any credits or prepayments that you've made. And this equals either the net tax payable or your refund due. So here we see the front page of the 1040. The 1040 form is 2 pages. This is page 1. And at the top, you would enter your name and address information, your Social Security, the security number of your spouse as well. And then you're going to go through and select a filing status, whether you're single, married filing jointly, married filing separately. There's head of household and qualifying widower. And these are the 5 filing statuses. And everyone has to choose at least just one filing status. Next, you'll list your exemptions. So remember I said you have one for yourself and one for your spouse. And then you'll list your dependents. That would be your children or any other dependent that you might have. You'll total that up. Here, this person has 3. It looks like they have themselves, their spouse, and 1 child. Next section is the income section. And here you're going to be listing your wages, any dividends, any interest that you might earn from the bank. Alimony goes here. If you have business income or loss from a small business, you're self-employed, that goes here on line 12. You would enter any capital gains. If you have an IRA and you get a distribution from that IRA, it's listed here. There's farm income, unemployment compensation, Social Security benefits, and any other income that you're required to report. That goes here in this section. The next section is where you're going to calculate your adjusted gross income. So from that income that you entered, you have certain deductions you can take. For example, there's a whole list of them here you can see, and you should go through and read them all, but 2 that might be of interest to you is number 33, the student loan interest deduction, and number 34, tuition and fees. All the deductions here, they're very desirable because they are subtracted directly from your income. And so you would never pay tax on anything that you subtracted here. So you want to get as many of these deductions as possible. Here's one for health savings account deductions, moving expenses. This is if you're moving because you're taking another job. And of course, all of these have some rules that you have to follow, so you'd have to go through and read the instruction sheet about each one of these items to see if you qualify and if you can deduct them. And so once you've entered all of your deductions, you're going to total them up and you're going to subtract them from the income that you've entered. And the very last line, number 37 here, this is your adjusted gross income. And you're going to carry that figure to the top of the next page, right up here. Number 39, it says amount from line 37, or I'm sorry, it's line 38. It's very small, difficult for me to see. It says amount from line 37, your adjusted gross income. So you just carry that over to the top of the page 2 of the 1040. And from there, you're going to calculate any taxes and credits that you might have. Here, line 40, you're going to enter in your itemized deductions if you want to use the itemized deductions. The rule with the IRS is that you get a standard deduction, and that's talked about right here in this little box. You get a standard deduction, or you can itemize, and you should choose whichever one is highest. Okay, so, and we'll go over the itemized deductions and all of this in other chapters. So right now you just kind of want to familiarize yourself with the form. And then you have exemptions. Here you can put in your exemptions. You get a certain amount per dependent that you have and for yourself. And it's a little hard for me to see it, but I want to say it's around 35, or maybe that's 38.50. It's very small on my computer, but every year it goes up just a little bit. And basically this is the government's way of saying, you know, well, we're not going to tax you on money that you have to have for things like food and, you know, little bits of medicine, you know, Band-Aids and stuff like that. So everybody gets a little bit of an exemption, meaning, you know, this is the money that you really need to live. And so we're not going to tax you on that. And so that is exempt right away. And it's a certain amount. It usually goes up about $50 to $100 every year for inflation. Once you've subtracted your either standard deduction or your itemized deduction and then your exemption amount, then this is going to give you your taxable income. And from there, on line 44, you're going to calculate your tax. And then after that, you will calculate any credits that you have. For example, there's an education credit a lot of you might qualify for. Another popular one is the child tax credit. There's also the residential energy credit. You can use this one if you make certain energy improvements to your home. So you'll need to just go through and read about all of these and determine which ones would apply to you. And then next are other taxes. So, for example, if you're self-employed, you have to pay self-employment tax, and you would complete a Schedule SE and calculate the tax using that form. In the next section, you're going to calculate up any payments that you've made. So, for example, the first line here says federal income tax withheld from forms W-2 and 1099. So if you have a W-2 that you get from your employer, there'll be a little box on there where it shows how much was withheld from your paycheck to send in for your federal income tax. And so you would enter that amount right there in that box. And that's going to be added up with all the other taxes, and then it'll be subtracted from the amount of tax that you owe. So you can see here, this person actually ended up, let's see, it looked like they qualified for the child tax credit. That was $1,000. And their tax had actually calculated to be $6,574. So we would subtract the child tax credit to get their total down to $5,574. So that's what they actually owe on the income that they had earned through the year. But on their W-2, they had already paid in $6,000. So we're going to take the difference between $6,000 and $5,574 here. And that will give them a refund of, it looks like, $426. So had they not paid in the $6,000 through their paycheck, they would have owed the whole $5,574. But because they paid in $6,000 already, they're going to get a little bit of refund. Now, had they paid in less, let's say they only paid in $3,000, then they would owe the difference between $5,574 and the $3,000 that they had already paid in. Okay, so basically that's it. This little section has your refund amount, and then if you owe, it'll be listed here. Sometimes there's a penalty. It depends on the situation. If you have somebody else filling out your taxes for you, here's where they would sign. You and your spouse, if you have one, would sign here. And if you have a paid preparer, they would fill in their information at the very bottom. So with that being said, going through the 1040, the question that I would like to pose to get our discussion started is that in the tax law, you're going to be reading in chapters 3 and 4 about gross income. The tax law refers to gross income, yet you will never see gross income on the Form 1040. The words gross income do not appear on Form 1040. So why do you think it's important to understand the concept of gross income, even though the term is not even found on Form 1040? So that's going to get us started this week. I look forward to having a great discussion with you all, and I will see you in the discussion.